Endless Light by Madeleine Langle. Narrated by Madison Martinez. Still, Chapter 1. I looked at the rich dark brown of the piled earth, and there hovering over it was a gorgeous red and gold butterfly. Its wings moved delicately, and it flew over the coffin and quivered in beauty as it hovered there. Grandfather saw it too, because he stood still, looking before he reached down and took a handful of earth and threw it into the coffin, which had been lowered into the grave. Earth to earth, he said, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. The butterfly still hovered, and the words which followed seemed to me to have more to do with the butterfly than with what he had just said. The Lord bless him and keep him. The Lord makes his face to shine upon him and be gracious unto him. The Lord lift up his countenance upon him and give him peace. What did those radiant words mean after the ashes to ashes and dust to dust stuff? What does it mean to me and to my family, who were friends of the man who was being committed to the dark earth? What did it mean to his wife and his kids? Slowly, gracefully, the butterfly flew off and was lost in the dappled shadow of the tree. I looked from the butterfly to Leo Rodney. I've always thought of Leo as a slob and wiped off his kisses, which certainly didn't count as real ones. And I didn't much like him now, but that was his father in that box there, that box that was going to be covered with earth, not plastic, but real earth, which grass could grow in and butterflies fly over. I looked at Leo, and his face was all spotchedly as thought he had cried and cried, but he hadn't cried, and he needed to. I wasn't sure what anybody cried about, not with my grandfather saying those paradoxical contradictory words. And my grandfather was dying. The woman's whisper stuck into my ears. Wonder who'll be next to go. Grandfather, unless some kind of unforeseen accident happened, as it had happened to the Commander Rodney. My grandfather was likely to be the next one. He had leukemia, and he was saying all those words as calmly as though he had all the answers about life and death and God and all the cosmic things, and grandfather would be the first to say he doesn't. Leo moved just then, calling my attention to him, and I remember last year when he was on a religious kick and was telling us exactly what God is like. Grandfather had said quietly, not rebellically, just quietly, as St. Augustine says, if you think you understand and isn't God. Looking at Leo, I wished he was still on his religious trip. When he thought he knew all the answers to everything, John pulled my hand gently. It was over. We were going to the Rodneys to help out when the people of Seven Bay Island came to pay their respects. The house was full of casseroles and salads and, and pies and all the things people had been bringing in. Mrs. Rodney wouldn't have to cook a meal for weeks if it was a good thing. They had a big freezer for all those funeral baked meats. It wasn't too bad at the Rodneys because it kept busy. I was kept busy serving people, washing dishes, and pouring vast quantities of iced tea. The Coast Guard and marine biology people drank the most. I must have filled the gray-eyed young man's glass half a dozen times. The last time he smiled at me apologetically. "You're just John Austen's sister, aren't you?" "Yes, Vicky."